Let's get this party started, right? All right. Okay. My name is Jayne Reynolds, as he said a minute. The founder of Sycamore and Sage Nutrition right here in Mesa, Arizona, and pursued my board certification in holistic nutrition after experiencing some pretty chronic health conditions of my own, struggling with depression and anxiety that started after the birth of my firstborn. So about a week after she was born, I had an E. coli infection. They put me in the hospital for 3 days, and they gave me 7 bags of antibiotics over the course of that 3 days to kill off the E. coli infection. Now, in reality, they really probably saved my life, but in truth, what happened was they decimated my gut bacteria. And it makes me feel really old to say that back then we didn't know, but back then we did not know that we needed to reseed the gut with good bacteria. And so about 2-3 weeks after I got home, I started having panic attacks. They were very mild. And I went to see my doctor, and he was probably about 70 in a white coat, standing there telling me, there, dear, you've just had a baby. What do you expect? You're probably not going to feel great. You're not sleeping at night. Your hormones are all over the place. And so I said, okay, fine. I guess that's probably what it is. Those panic attacks escalated and escalated over the course of 7 years until I was completely debilitated, mostly bedridden, having 3 or 4 anxiety attacks for an hour at a time a day. And I had been praying through that entire journey for God to give me answers as to why I was feeling the way that I did. And one day a friend reached out and she said, hey, you know, you've tried therapy, you're on benzodiazepines, you're taking antidepressants, and none of this seems to be helping you. Why don't you go and see my naturopath? I didn't even know what a naturopath was, but I was up for it because I was pretty desperate at that point. And she started working with me. She said, it'll take a year to get you well because you've been sick for 7 years. And it did. It took a full year. But one of the things that she and another practitioner suggested was going gluten-free. I went gluten-free. Took me 2 weeks to decide to do it because it's hard work. And 7 days later, my gone, completely gone. And I said to myself, what on earth am I missing? How do I not know as an adult how my body works, where the bits in my body are, what they do, how they function? Why do I not know that the things that I'm putting in my body are impacting my brain? This felt so intangible. I didn't know how to fix it. But things that are wrong inside my body that are impacting my brain, I can fix those. And so it started this journey. I went back to school, got board certified in holistic nutrition. I went on to certified as a nutrition recovery coach. I've gone through Amen Clinics, brain program, and this year I'm working on the mental health coaching program through the American Association of Christian Counselors. So just continuing to broaden and deepen that knowledge and understanding. But by far in life, my greatest accomplishments, my husband, Casey, of 30 years, we just celebrated that anniversary last week up in Alaska. I came home with no souvenirs, just a head cold to show for it. So forgive me if I'm a little congested or grabbing my lozenges halfway through. And then the other joy of my life is surviving our Irish triplets. Naomi on the far right side there, she was 13 months old when Brittany and Emily were born. So we had our hands full for a little while there. And now Emily and Zach, the ones on the right-hand side, are going to make us grandparents in November. Yay! I was excited to be a mom. I cannot even tell you how excited I am to be a grandma. So Nanny and Granddad coming this Thanksgiving. We're very excited. I want to thank you all just for the opportunity to come and speak today, because it really is some of the things that I feel like this is cutting in and out, to talk to you about that are near and dear to my heart, and really can be incredibly life-changing and held very deeply connected with our faith as well. So we're going to combine 2 of the topics that are just near and dear to my heart today. I want to begin our time today by taking us back to one of the most dramatic seasons in the Old Testament. So Israel is in complete crisis. King Ahab and Queen Jezebel people into the world, a false god of storms and fertility. And Jezebel has been systematically going around hunting down the prophets of God and murdering them. And so Elijah, prophet of the Lord, he shows up with a bold message. That is not okay. God is not pleased, so there will be a drought. Snaps his fingers, prays to God. The whole land is thrown into a drought for the. This also does not make Jezebel very happy, right? Years later, Elijah challenges Ahab and the prophets of Baal to this public show at Carmel. Each side builds an altar. They start to call on their gods to burn the whole altar up. Do you remember this story? And so the gods, are doing their thing. They're chanting, they're cutting themselves, they're crying out to God all day long. And Elijah, he's got some serious sass. He's up there on the mountain. He's like, maybe your God's asleep. Maybe your God's in the bathroom. Maybe you should shout a little louder because he doesn't hear you, right? And nothing happens. And then Elijah takes his altar. He's built the 12 stones up. He drenches that thing in buckets and buckets of water, and he calls on the name of the Lord to light that altar, and it goes up in smoke and burns up the bull and the water surrounding it. And everybody in that moment declares the Lord this stunning victory that he is witnessing right here. But right after that moment of triumph comes Elijah's lowest valley. So when Jezebel heard what was going on, she sent a message and she told him, by this time tomorrow, if I catch you, you're dead. And this bold prophet who just challenged all these other prophets on Mount Carmel turns and runs. He runs from the queen's threats. He runs here, he runs from exhaustion, and he runs all the way. That is where our focus is going to be. Not on the fire on the mountain and the moments of victory, broom tree, worn out, afraid, because it's there, it's weakness that God meets him with food, water, shows us how he restores us under stress. This is a story of the highest highs to the lowest, top victory to under a broom tree, exhausted and praying to die. That's not just Elijah's story. In 2004, when I went through my breakdown and I was really not functioning, I didn't know what else to do. I just laid in bed at night and prayed that God would take me home while I slept. I did not want to carry on living like that anymore because it wasn't anymore kind of a quality of life. And it wasn't that I wanted to do something about it because my faith held me so rock steady, but I really didn't want to carry on like I was. And this is how ministry and healthcare is as well. Thank you. Hold that thought. Okay. Try that one. How's that going? All right. Very good. Okay. So, thank you. Tammy ran off, but she went and fixed that. Thank you. So this is how it is in ministry and healthcare too. They often feel exactly like this. We have moments of amazing victory, right? With our clients and with our employees and with our staff members. And then we have these deep valleys of fear and exhaustion and burnout that follow afterwards. So I was getting ready for this presentation. I have a friend who is an ICU physician at a well-known children's hospital. And I said, can I just pick your brain about all of this? How your staff, how the people around you are managing all of their stress and the things that they go through every day. And in our time together, right at the beginning, she said something that stopped me in my tracks. She said, in my peer circle, taking care of yourself is seen as weakness. Now, she's a woman at the top of her career field in a field full of men, so she's already working on that level, right, where she's got to prove herself, but she's also in a boys' club of bravado, and we have to. If you show any signs that you need to take care of yourself, it is not okay. But that's heartbreaking to me. It sums up the culture so many of us live in. Push harder. Don't slow down. Don't admit you're tired. even if it's costing you physically and spiritually. But here's the consequence. When my friend doesn't take care of herself, she isn't only putting herself at risk, she's working in a pediatric ICU where these tiny lives are on the line. Her ability to think clearly, respond quickly, and show compassion is directly tied to whether she's nourished, rested, and spiritually grounded. And the same is exactly true for every single one of us. When we neglect our own care, and that's what Bishop Dolan was talking about before we came in here, when we neglect our own care as pastors and chaplains and caregivers, the impact just ripples out. Our families, our people, our communities, they all feel it, which is why God's model with Elijah is so powerful. He gave him bread and water and rest first before sending him back into ministry. So today, in our time together, we're going to spend some time talking about the physiology of stress. How does that show up in your body and what is going on? We're going to specifically take a look at the adrenal glands because they directly impact how we handle stress. And then we're going to take a look at nutritionally, how can we support the adrenal glands and how to not just have a list of nutrients, but what does that look like in real life? How can I take that home and implement it into my daily practice? We're going to take a look after that at how we can use adaptogens to help give us calm and focus and support the structure of our bodies and minds. And lastly, we'll take a look at some grace-filled renewal rhythms that work in tandem with the adrenal glands and help us to get restoration that we're looking for. All right. So let's take a look first then at the physiology of stress in the wilderness. After his victory, we see that Elijah ran. He didn't run for an hour or for a day. The rough calculations say that he ran from Mount Carmel to Beersheba, which is 2 days, and then he ran for another full day into the wilderness. So he ran away for 3 days. That's not strength. That's a man who's overwhelmed, frightened, and worn down. And why? Because Jezebel was in charge, and all of her threats carried weight. Many of us can relate. Sometimes it's a boss. I've definitely had some of those. Maybe it's a client. Maybe I've had some of those too. Maybe it's a system that we just can't control, and their demands have us not running on foot, but they leave us depleted and running on empty on the inside. So when stress first hits, the body is designed to respond. We have this adrenaline and cortisol surge in the very beginning. And then our blood sugar rises. And it does that on purpose so it can flood your muscles with energy so that when you need to run for 3 days from the bear or whatever it is that's really super scary, you can do that and you can sustain your energy. It's very helpful short term. But when stress doesn't let up, that system gets stuck into overdrive. And once our blood sugar spikes and then crashes and leaves us foggy and shaking and craving quick fixes, then our sleep starts getting disrupted, and that makes our recovery even harder. And once those things start getting all tilted out of balance, our neurotransmitters also follow suit. And today, there are multiple neurotransmitters. The one that I want to focus on today is GABA, because it's the calming chemical inside of our brain. So when that's running low, it's like driving a car with your foot pressed against the accelerator for a whole time. Eventually, you're just going to run out of gas. And you are the same way too. If you run at that pace all of the time, then you are going to end up running out of gas. From her vantage point in the ICU, Sophia described it this way. She said, night shifts and trying to stay awake and think straight can be challenging. And the cafeteria is filled with foods that don't contain much nutrition. So I spent some time learning from you, and it was a huge eye-opener to me that the grocery store is full of more of the same. And when our bodies don't get nutrients, we just don't function. But since meeting with you, I've learned a lot more, and I've learned that I have to eat to save my life. I just can't eat what everybody else does. She went on to say, when I'm eating sugar, my mind is not sharp. I lose my creativity. I lose my ability to experience God. And this is the lived experience of stress and depletion. It doesn't just wear down your body. Poor nourishment dulls our clarity and it blunts our spiritual sensitivity. When stress is unrelenting, when fuel is poor, when recovery is absent, we end up under our own broom tree wishing that we could just give up. So, what does God do when he sees Elijah underneath the broom tree? He doesn't give him a good old pep talk. Come on, Elijah, pull yourself to it. I know you can do it. Just one more day. Let's keep going. He doesn't tell him to pull himself together, and he doesn't scold him. You know, how could you? You were just up on the mountain. He doesn't shame him in any way. Twice the angel of the Lord touches him and he says, "Get up and eat." Proving most of the time when we're not doing well, right? What we really need is a good meal and a nap. There is bread, there is water, and there's rest. And this is God's first prescription. So it's easy to think that the solution to stress is to work harder or to push longer or to try to power through. Maybe we need more caffeine or more sugar. But God shows us a different rhythm. He restores Elijah's body before he addresses his spiritual. So a modern echo of this came from Sophia. She says, I put a lot of effort and focus on protein 3 times a day with snacks to keep my energy up. I meal prep and I fill my fridge with healthy stuff. She said, nights are harder. I always, though, I know what makes me worse. I avoid sugar and wheat because they cause me joint pain, rashes, and inflammation. So her words are mirroring God's design. Before Elijah could keep going, he needed to stop and eat and be restored. And Elijah's story reminds us, just like Bishop Dolan told us this morning, that these things, food and water and sleep, they're not extra, they're sacred gifts. They are God's first line of care for his weary servant. So we're going to look now at how science shows us that this shows up in the body, especially our adrenal glands as they respond to ongoing pressure. All right, how many of you know what your adrenal glands are? Do you know 1 or 2? Okay, 3. All right, great. 4. Okay, you're getting braver. Like one person raises their hand and eventually we're getting there. Okay, so your kidneys are in your back, right? Well, we see it, we feel them. They're right here in our back. And on top of them, we have this tiny little organ about the size of a walnut. Looks like a little party hat. And it's really small, but it controls some really big things that are going on inside your body. So the first thing they do is they make cortisol, which has disappeared underneath the little video there. But they make cortisol. This is our main stress response hormone. And the second thing they do is make something called aldosterone, and that helps us to maintain our fluid balance, our electrolytes, and our blood pressure. So when you think about stress, one of the things that can go up, right, when we're really stressed out is our blood pressure. Our adrenals are helping to control this. They also make adrenaline, and that's the surge of energy we've talked about, what we feel in fight or flight. And then, very importantly, as we transition into menopause or andropause, they kick in and they start making they become the primary source of our sex hormones. So when we go through menopause or andropause and those hormone levels start dropping, which impacts so many things to do with our emotional well-being, when our estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone drop, our adrenals, provided they are not burnt out, are supposed to kick in and start helping produce some of those sex hormones. So the challenge happens when stress is ongoing. Those adrenals start burning through nutrients like crazy. It's like running your car at 90 miles an hour instead of 50 to 55 miles an hour. If you run at 90 miles an hour, you will run out of gas faster. If you coast, it will last a little longer. The number one nutrient that they burn through is vitamin C. Your adrenal glands are made up of 70% vitamin C. So when my middle daughter, started having some anxiety attacks, we took her to the ND because she wouldn't listen to mom. So I was like, you need the doctor to tell you what to do, right? Too close. And the doctor just put her on high-dose vitamin C, 3 to 4 grams a day. And that was enough to get her anxiety in her teen years under control. We also burn through B vitamins, especially B5 and biotin, which is B7, and those are the ones that help us with energy and resilience. We burn through magnesium and calcium, both of which are needed to calm the nervous system and relax our tight muscles. Potassium has some impact on that as well, but potassium and sodium are also essential for our hydration, our energy, and our blood pressure, and it's a balance of those things. So I saw a beautiful article come out the other day, finally saying that low salt diets aren't necessarily the track that we need to pursue, but actually balancing potassium to sodium and getting more potassium than sodium. It's these high sodium diets that are killing us off, but we need to get more potassium in to bring balance. The body is a marvelously, wonderfully created thing that has this level of homeostasis if we know how to treat it right. And then vitamins D and K. These are crucial for our hormone regulation and immunity. When we don't replenish these building blocks, stress literally drains the tank. And that's when we start feeling wiped out, anxious, achy, or like we're running on fumes. So in traditional Chinese medicine, adrenal health is connected with what they call kidney essence. So they lump together organs and glands, and then we have emotions that play themselves out. So if somebody comes into my office and starts talking about how they're feeling a ton of grief and extended sadness and they can't let go of things, that starts telling me that we probably have problems with the lungs, the large intestine, and the thyroid before we've even started looking clinically at what's going on. But in the water element, do you see those things that show up? Lack of trust, fear of the unknown, worry, and anxiety. And isn't that what Elijah experienced under the broom tree when he uttered the words, "I've had enough, Lord. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors." And it's what we hear among the people that we're caring for, among our staff, and among our caregivers today. I'm anxious all the time. I feel like I can't rest. I'm completely overwhelmed. I'm feeling burnt out. So, what is going on inside the body? This physiology of stress. Stress causes cellular damage, and that doesn't matter whether it's good stress or bad stress, right? So, if you've got a daughter getting married, we've done that twice now, good stress, but there's a lot of it. Moving house, another example of good stress most of the time. But we also have stress from fear, from unresolved trauma, from illness, from junk food, from constant pressure, and that starts wearing down on our cells. And then our fight or flight activates. And when our sympathetic nervous system is engaged, then the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest or digest, is basically offline. They can't both be going. It's not 100% true, but mostly true that if your fight or flight is engaged, then you are not resting and digesting well. Then your fatigue is going to set in because your inflammation is rising and the body is shifting to repair mode. And we experience this as bone-deep tiredness. And especially in adrenal burnout, it's very common to hear people say, "I went to bed, I was in bed for 8 hours, I woke up this morning, I am still exhausted, and I can't pull myself together. I'm just tired all the time." Our immune activity starts to increase because once we get run down, we usually start getting sick as well. And that energy is redirected toward fighting the damage and infection, which leaves less energy for daily living. Our cortisol follows. We've talked about that. It goes up. And stress will keep it firing over and over and over again until the adrenal glands are worn out. And then over time, unresolved stress will leave its mark in the body, from adhesions to long-term healthcare challenges. And we see this, the beautiful thing about traditional Chinese medicine, one of the things they taught me, is that we are electrical creatures. So we have all these signals that are going on, they're moving in energy throughout the body. And when we have scar tissue from unresolved emotions or physical traumas inside the body, it blocks and prevents the flow of that energy through the body. And so we want to do what we can to help reduce that. Now, the body gives us clues. So this is where the first two activities on your little worksheet come in. Up here on the screen, you will see your autonomics. This is either your parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest, or your fight or flight sympathetic nervous system. So I'll read them out to you in case you can't see them. I've got some people out there squinting. So your resting heart rate, if your resting heart rate is somewhere below 70 beats per minute, then you're likely in parasympathetic or rest and digest state. If it's 70 to 80, you're likely to be slightly parasympathetic. If you're 80 to 85, slightly sympathetic, and 85 plus, you are sympathetic. So anybody in here have like a Fitbit or a tracker that they know what their resting heart rate is? Do you mind sharing? Do you know what yours is? Mid 70s. Okay, fantastic. If you don't know, you can have like grab a timer for 15 seconds, take your pulse. You're all at rest right now. You're not. um, and multiply that by 4. That will give you your resting heart rate. Does anybody else know where their resting heart rate is at? I'll give you 15 seconds. I got some people working on it. Perfect. Lovely. Yes. Okay, that can be super low, right? And so there may be some things that you want to do to help pick that up a little bit. We also don't want to, this is the sleep one is a classic case of this, right? Where it's less than 15 minutes to fall asleep, you're in parasympathetic mode. But if your head hits the pillow and you are out in 5 seconds, then you are likely exhausted. And that's also not good. You probably want 5 minutes or so where you're lying there, settling down and going to sleep, right? So there are times when we need to also pick up the heart rate. I have a friend whose heart rate regularly drops down in the 40s. And she has POTS, so she's living on salt, keeping her heart rate up. All right, anybody else made any discoveries while we've been sitting there? 83. Okay, so maybe we want to work on some things to bring that down. Yes. 72. Lovely. Going in the right direction. 70. Lovely. 72 as well. Great. Okay. All right. How many of you are lying down and falling asleep in less than 15 minutes? Okay, we got a few of you. How many of you are tossing and turning for 30 minutes or more? Okay, we're a lot of restlessness, and there's a lot of things that play into that too, right? These are clues, but they're not the whole story. Maybe you have hormone disruption or imbalance. Maybe your room is too hot. Maybe you've drank caffeine at 3 this afternoon. I have so many people that show in my office and are like, I cannot fall asleep, and I'm like, what did you have today? And they're like, I had an energy drink at 4 o'clock. Well, it's no wonder you can't fall asleep. All right. And then these other little signs. If you're ticklish or constantly fidgeting and unable to sit still, you may be in fight or flight mood. Mood. Okay, so you can make a quick note. How many of you know that you have stress when it shows up in your body? You have a space in your body that you feel like it shows up. You do? Okay. Anybody want to share where they feel like the stress shows up? In your eyeball. Okay. No, I get it. Okay. Anybody else? Yes. Shoulders. We carry a lot of tension right here, right? Your shoulders were not designed to be worn as earrings. Stomach. Yes. Okay. And me too. I would feel it here in my chest, but I would feel it on my right-hand side as well. That's where I really struggled and carried it the most. The problem is when this sympathetic dominance takes over, we start seeing the world through a lens of problems and not solutions. And healing can't begin until the body shifts back towards that parasympathetic balance. All right. I know I'm the meanest nutritionist in the world. I constantly throwing up pictures of delicious desserts that you shouldn't really eat. Okay. All right. So true healing requires restoration. Healthy food, rest, deep breathing, prayer, and stillness all help the body shift into rest and digest, which is where repair takes place. That one meal, bread and water, sustained Elijah for 40 days and 40 nights. Simple nourishment gave him endurance for the long haul. I noticed that God did not reach down and give him empty calories. He did not say, hey, you know what? You're feeling really depleted. Don't worry about it, son. I have a Dutch Brothers gift card for you, and you can pick up Dutch Brothers on the way home. Or maybe you should treat yourself to that Starbucks latte to get you through. And he certainly didn't say to his staff, to Elijah, it's been a really busy day at work. You should grab McDonald's on the way home because I just know you're too tired to make dinner. It's okay. It'll be all right. Right? He gave him whole food. He gave him bread and he gave him water. And in healthcare, before I got into this, I worked 12 years in senior living. Believe me, I know what those reps bring in. All of the goodies, the baskets of cookies, the baskets of cake, the baskets of candy, right? These quick fixes are not helpful. I had a physician tell me that one of her staff members buys 10 bags of candy for his night shift, and that's all that he eats. And if he isn't eating candy, he's eating ice cream. And his shrug is, well, it'll catch up with me sometime, but it hasn't yet. And a social worker told me about her boss who constantly brings in junk food for the team, calling it her love language. The intention is kindness, but the impact is that it's continuing to fuel her cycle of stress and burnout for her employees. So we're going to take a look at the nutrients we need to help us reduce our stress and where we can find them in God's plan for us. All right, so these are the nutrients that we need, and this is a really, oh, you know what? My QR code is right underneath there. All right, so on your handouts on the flip side, there is a QR code that you can go to. All right, so this is the list of nutrients that we need to help support the adrenal glands. And this is a very, very brief list of some of the foods where you can find it. But I have an 8.5 by 11 that will take you and give you each of those nutrients and an entire list of the foods where you can find all of those nutrients so you can start incorporating them. And you want to think of this as God's grocery list for your adrenal glands. They are not exotic foods. They're everyday things: citrus, leafy greens, nuts, seeds, bone broth. We're excited about our bone broth down here. All right, and clean water. On coffee and caffeine, and when too much caffeine gets in the way, it's individual for each of us. I can tolerate about 15 to 20 ounces of coffee in the morning. They give us a quick blip, but they drop us off. Thank you very much. That blood sugar drop, it only has to be 30 points over 6 hours or less, can send your body into the same symptoms as a panic attack. They are nearly identical. You can't tell them apart. So when somebody's in my office having a panic attack, or I've had one recently, I've had people call me, I'm having a panic attack, I don't know what to do. My first question is, when did you last eat today? And what did you eat? And it's usually, oh, I had a lemonade iced tea for breakfast. I forgot to eat my protein. I skipped lunch because I was busy at work. And now I'm having a panic attack. I'm like, nope, you're having an episode of low blood sugar. So let's get you some nuts and some cheese and some things that are going to stabilize it and bring you back up. Alcohol is a short-term relaxer, but it totally disrupts your blood sugar balances. And so drinking at night, and a lot of us, we lean into that. I've got to have coffee to get going in the morning. I have to have a glass of wine at night to turn off. That ends up disrupting your sleep. So if you can let go of that, that might do you the world of good as well. And then the last thing I have on there is these hidden food sensitivities. For me, it was gluten. I have had numerous people in my office: gluten, dairy, soy, oats, corn, These things will drive brain inflammation and cause all kinds of horrendous problems that disrupt energy levels. And we can test for that. We don't have to do elimination diets anymore. We can test for 180 foods, get the answers in about 2 weeks. Okay. Elijah was given that bread and water. Our daily bread might look a little bit different. So, this is what a basic meal looks like. You want to have protein at every meal, especially starting your day at breakfast with a little bit of protein. 20 to 30 grams of protein with every meal. Colorful vegetables. Our vegetables, I got a head shake. Whoa, no, not vegetables. Okay. Our vegetables are important for a couple of reasons. Not only do they contain those magnesium, the vitamin C, the potassium that our stress burns through very quickly, but they also contain the cofactors that our body uses along with protein to make our neurotransmitters. So if you're low in serotonin, you're low in dopamine, one of the first things we need to start with is a good amount of protein in your diet, and then the cofactors that your body needs to make them successfully. We need omega-3 rich foods like salmon or sardines. And not everybody's favorite thing, sardines, but I grew up on sardines on toast. Well, Melvin's, yes, from the UK too. We do everything on toast. Sardines on toast, eggs on toast, beans on toast. I don't, everything on toast, right? Yeah. So these things help to calm inflammation. They stabilize the mood. And the omega-3s help your brain communicate across the synapses. And then we want fermented foods and fiber-rich foods. I did not get fiber up on there, but so incredibly important. Because the thing that I learned when I was so sick was that when your gut is not right, your brain will not be right either. 90% of your serotonin is made inside your digestive tract. It is not made in your brain. Rough estimates that I last heard, 60 to 70% of your dopamine is made inside your digestive tract, not in the brain. And your GABA receptors begin their journey with all of this high fiber foods, fermented foods that help to build the good probiotics inside your belly. They are responsible for doing that. And then last but not least, hydration. Water before caffeine, because even mild dehydration raises cortisol. So we've talked about a couple of things. I'm going to give you just a moment while I ask, is there any changes, as I've put those up on there right now, are there any changes that jumped out at you that you thought, that's one thing that I could add in that would make a change to how my life is today? Yes. Yeah, fantastic. Love hearing about more salmon in the diet. Wild caught. Don't buy the stuff that's been farm raised. They feed it this lovely stuff called Samafan. There are other brand names for it too, to turn it pink. If you got farm raised salmon in the grocery store without any food coloring in it, it would be this nasty gray color because they live off of food in the ocean that turns their flesh pink. And that product is banned in the UK because it causes blindness. But in the US, we're like, more for us, suckers. I I don't understand. I really don't. Okay, anybody else? Any other changes? Water, hydration. Yep. And electrolytes are the key. It's not just about drinking more water, it's about making sure they're rich in electrolytes. So even if you put like cucumber in your water or citrus in your water, they are high in electrolytes and they will transfer into the water, and it's a good way to get more electrolytes in your water. Yes. Uh-huh. If yes, I did bring up toast. Yes. Yeah. So I would go like if you said Italian, like if you can get your wheat from Italy, more power to you. If you can make your own bread, more power to you. Like to me, that's the best thing you can possibly do. We're looking for a couple of things. I'm always encouraging people to just clean up your ingredients. If you flip over that bag of bread and the first ingredient is not wheat, put it back, right? It can say whole grains when it's got wheat in there. It doesn't have to have a lot of wheat in there, whole grain wheat in there to make it a whole grain product. So we want things in there like water, yeast, sugar, salt. I don't think there's really much else, and wheat, flour of some type, right? So if you can do a fermented bread, I can't tolerate fermented foods because I got exposed to toxic mold because my journey just wasn't done. God wasn't done with it. And it just messed my gut up even more. So I struggle with fermented foods, but if you can do a sourdough, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But the more you can get away from these hyper processed foods, these ultra processed foods, the better off you'll be. Ezekiel bread's amazing. Everything's soaked and sprouted. Yes. Yeah. Now, it's bio-individual too, right? Because if you have a wheat sensitivity or a gluten or gliadin sensitivity, then I had somebody tell me the other day, she deals with symptoms of schizophrenia and psychosis, and she was struggling. And I said, tell me what you've eaten. She goes, well, I'm really good. I'm gluten-free. I said, fantastic. Tell me what you're eating. She said, well, I just have like a slice or two of Ezekiel toast a week. I said, that's not gluten-free. It's not, but it's soaked and sprouted. Yeah, but that doesn't get rid of the gluten. It's still got gluten in it. So if you're trying, because we know gluten sensitivity can be associated with schizophrenia and psychosis. So if you have a sensitivity to it, right, then it's a bio-individual decision for everyone. All right. What does that look like in a meal plan? Just to give you some ideas. Maybe a veggie omelet with avocado for breakfast, or chia pudding with berries and flax milk, or a protein smoothie with spinach and nut butter and berries. At lunch, we might have a big salad with greens and chicken and pumpkin seeds and olive oil and lemon. Watch your dressings. They are hidden sources of all kinds of inflammatory oils. Lentil soup loaded with protein. Maybe some gluten-free crackers. I like Mary's Gone crackers. They're all loaded with soaked and sprouted seeds. Turkey in a hummus wrap and maybe a gluten-free tortilla. And again, if you're not wheat sensitive, you don't have to take the wheat out. Dinner, salmon, roasted sweet potato and broccoli, stir fry with chicken and rainbow veggies, or zucchini noodles with turkey marinara. And if you don't like your veggies, start finding ways to hide them. Zucchini disappears in a smoothie. You would never know it's in there. Zucchini disappears in taco meat. Zucchini disappears in spaghetti sauce. There are lots of ways. My daughter was like, you do what with zucchini? Like it's some kind of sacrilegious moment. All right, where are we at time-wise? Okay, great, we're doing well. All right, so now we're going to move on, and I will take questions at the end because I know you'll have some. But we're going to move on to adaptogens because this was absolutely crucial in my healing journey. You cannot out-supplement a bad diet. You cannot. But supplements play an incredibly essential role in helping us to get well. I use amino acid therapy in my practice with my clients. That's a huge part of Amen Clinic's work, is using amino acid therapy. And adaptogens are not amino acids, but they're a part of this profile that we can use to help people. And I look at this because I look at nature and I go, God, you are amazing. You gave us all these incredible plants that were put right here in nature that are designed to help us adapt and cope with stress. And typically they do help us adapt. They don't generally push us too far in one direction or the other, stimulant or depressant or sedative, but they do bring balance. Ashwagandha is amazing for that. You can take it at night and it'll help you sleep. You can take it in the morning and it'll help you get up and get going. We have a bottle of that at home. We call it, I can do it in a bottle. So if you feel like you can't do it today, you can take some ashwagandha and by golly, you'll get it done. My favorite is black licorice. I have been a black licorice girl since I was a tiny tot. We grew up with licorice all sorts, but they're loaded with wheat and sugar, so not a good plan. So I take licorice solid extract in the morning, and it's just glycerin and black licorice, and it's amazing. Picks me up, picks my energy up, and helps me to get going. That one you have to be careful with because it can raise blood pressure. It's the only one that they get really upset about if you're on blood pressure medication and that kind of thing, which brings me to the point, don't start taking anything. This is my disclaimer, my cover my rear end moment. If you're taking medications, please check with somebody who knows and understands about the interactions between medications and supplements because that's a real thing. And there's a real interaction sometimes with health conditions that you may have going on, right? So if you have high blood pressure, black licorice might not be your best go-to. Eleuthero is very good, or ginseng for picking your energy up. Holy basil, there is a group, I think it's Prince of Peace, makes a holy basil tulsi tea. So you can just get a cup of tea and sip on that through the day, and it will calm your mind and give you that little bit of L-theanine that you need to stay on task. Rhodiola is a little bit more stimulating. Schisandra berry is an all-over tonic. It helps with the liver as well, and so often the liver is implicated. When our minds are running and overwhelmed and busy and won't shut down, very often our liver is overloaded. And you think about what we feed our little kids and then send them to school. We're like, here, Johnny, here's orange juice, a Pop-Tart. Now have a blast in class. And the teacher's like, I'm sure he has ODD and ADHD and all of these things. And Johnny's like, I can't sit still. You know, because his little liver is overloaded with all the sugars you just put in. You didn't give him any protein. All right. So our livers, Schisandra berry helps to take care of that. Maca is amazing for helping with hormonal balance. And bacopa up there in the top left-hand corner, when I went to see my ND and I said, I'm on benzodiazepines and I want to get off them, I don't want to be on them, I actually got lost in our U-shaped assisted living building on my benzodiazepines. And that was the day I was like, I don't want to be on these anymore. I couldn't find my way out of the building. So bacopa is what she used to help me get off of those. Wonderfully calming, brings a great sense of relief. So these are like scaffolding on our building. They don't replace the structure itself of food, water, rest, and prayer, but they give us extra support while the body's healing. And they remind us that God's design, the creation itself, contains tools to help us endure and recover from stress. All right. I want to take a moment and just touch on GABA before we go into our grace-filled rhythms. When our adrenal health is compromised, it shows up as low GABA. And when we talk about stress, it's not just a feeling, it's a chain reaction of things that are going on inside the body. And the simple way to explain this is when cortisol, that main stress hormone, goes up, it's like a teeter-totter, and GABA goes down and stays down. And when the GABA is gone, it feels like your mind won't stop racing, you can't relax, sleep won't come, you might start craving sugar or caffeine or alcohol to take the edge off and calm you down. And that's one of the reasons that chronic stress feels so overwhelming. It's not just in your head. Your physiology is literally tilted out of balance. And for women, I see this often flare up during their post-menopause journey, partly because the adrenal glands, as I said in the beginning, are responsible for helping us to generate our hormones during menopause, but also because progesterone is key for GABA to work well. So when women start hitting this perimenopause state and they can't sleep well and they're feeling incredibly anxious, both of which GABA regulate, their doctors say, oh my goodness, you're going through the change of life. Let me write you a prescription for a sleep aid and an antidepressant, right? But really what we need to do is fix the root cause. Let's help them shore up their progesterone, either through a supplement or bioidentical hormone replacement therapy to get that level back up so that they feel like a human being again. My ND used to say, it didn't matter what symptom I showed up in her office with, she'd say, I have a remedy for that. And one of the things I used to tease her, you know, one day you're going to die and we're going to put your tombstone up and there's going to be an inscription on it and it's going to say, I have a remedy for this. Right? There aren't many symptoms that we experience or go through that we can't actually make a change on with diet and lifestyle and supplements. Most of those things can be shifted, whether it's homeopathy all the way up to multivitamins and change in diet and lifestyle. All of those things can make massive changes so that we can age well and with success and show up as volunteers and in our ministries to the best of our capacity till our days are done and we're called home. Okay, so there's that QR code. When you sign up to get that list of foods, you will also get this better mental health checklist. And this is going to give you some of the daily rhythms that are very helpful. So after food and rest, Elijah gets the gentle whisper, right? He's up on the mountainside. He's no longer the man collapsed under a broom tree, although his mindset was still in a bit of a tough spot. But God reminded him that he was not alone. 7,000 had not bowed to Baal, and he sent him back with renewed clarity and purpose. And this is the point where Elijah goes back. He picks Elisha, and he trains him and has him take up the mantle for ministry. And we need that same rhythm today. Without renewal, we return to our work depleted and burned out. And with it, we can return steady, restored, and ready. My physician friend described her renewal rhythms this way. She said, my number one thing is hiking and 90 minutes of hot yoga. Intense physical activity heals my body and helps me manage stress, but sleep is the most important thing. I need more sleep than the average person, and if I don't honor that, I can't function. Notice the simplicity. Hiking, yoga, sleep, nourishment, these are not luxuries, they're lifelines. But here's the truth, and this is what I see in practice. The renewal does not look the same for everyone. That same kind of intense exercise might restore somebody, but for others, especially those in adrenal fatigue, it is too much. And so I will start somebody out saying, can you go and take a 2-minute walk today? And just go and get into the rhythm of gently going for a walk today. And once you're in that rhythm, maybe we will add another couple of minutes to that walk as we're beginning to build. And if you're exhausted and you can't recover when you get back, we need to cut that back down. You may have a season where you don't even exercise for a little bit while your body is still in recovery. So the things that are up on here, 7 hours of restorative, consistent sleep, that is, if we could just fix that for most of the people that came in the clinic right away, that would be, probably the first thing to fix it. Time in nature, forest bathing, does an emotional and physical reset for you faster than hours and hours and hours of meditation. As long as you're not afraid of bears, right? Epsom salt baths. Epsom salts are rich in magnesium. And so that's going to help restore magnesium, which is very important, as we said, for the adrenal glands, but also for GABA levels. If you have low blood pressure, do not get in a magnesium salt bath. We will be scraping you off the floor, because it'll just drop you down even lower. Our creative practices like music or journaling or painting or cooking or going to counseling, we talked about that a lot this morning. Gentle breath work and stretching. There are trauma-informed somatic therapists who can help you let go of the stored trauma that is tied up inside your body, in your muscles and in your organs. And I used to think that that stuff sounded like woo-woo. It's like kind of out there, and I'm not sure if I believe all that. I've done some of those things. They've been the most helpful things that I have been through. A vagal nerve stimulator. Anybody heard of the vagal nerve? All right, it is a major nerve that helps control your autonomic nervous system. It goes down from the brain, touches all the major organs inside your body. And it can communicate. That's where the communications of stress, we think those are coming from our brain. Most of that communication is going from our belly to our brain via the vagal nerve. So if we can calm the vagal nerve down, and it's like a TENS machine for the vagal nerve, it rests right here. My daughter, Brittany, who just got diagnosed with POTS in the spring, has been doing that to help reset her autonomic nervous system. And I have joked she's gone from being like a type A driven person to being the most laid out, chill person that we have to light a fire underneath to get anything done, because it has just calmed her down so much. And then we also have quiet time with Jesus, prayer, scripture, and meditation. So none of these are extras. They are simple, God-given ways that our bodies heal and our spirits reconnect. Elijah had his bread, water, and rest. We have our rhythms of nourishment, movement, creativity, and prayer. So before you walk away from all of this today and say, oh my gosh, Jayne, I came in here because I wanted to get some idea about how I could rest, but all you've done is give me a great big list of new things to add in, and I don't know how I'm going to make it all work. All right, we already did this a little bit with the food. We just want to take one thing. Bishop Dolan talked about this today as well. Pick one rhythm that you can add in, because we want this to be about grace. It's not about guilt. It's not about trying to get it done every single day. If you are doing the cha-cha of life like most of us, then you've got 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but you're still making progress. You'll note that God did not give Elijah a week-long meal plan underneath the broom tree. He did not tell him to go out and do multiple jumping jacks or run a marathon. He told him to do 1 nap, 1 drink, 1 bread, right? 1 of each thing. And then he came back and he gave him the next thing to do the next day. And that's how it is for us as well. No shame, no striving, just grace to restore what's been drained. All right, so in conclusion today, just as God fed Elijah before sending him back into ministry, he desires to strengthen his shepherds today, body, mind, and spirit. God does not ask us to pour out from emptiness. He meets us in weakness. He restores us with nourishment, and he whispers his presence before sending us forward. Caring for yourself is not selfish. It is actually faithful stewardship of the temple that God has entrusted to you. Rest, nutrition, and care are not indulgences, they are obedience. The American Association of Christian Counselors put it beautifully. You don't have to earn rest, and you don't have to feel guilty for needing replenishment. Healing is God's job, and faithfulness is ours. We cannot pour from an empty cup, and burnout isn't noble. It's a signal that shouldn't be ignored. Elijah needed bread, water, and sleep before he could hear God's whisper. And in the same way, we need daily rhythms of care, not just to survive our calling, but to live it out with joy. True restoration does not come through adrenaline and fire, but through daily bread, daily grace, and God's gentle whisper. The world needs the overflow of God in you, not your self-effort. And you are often that whisper in somebody else's wilderness. Your prayers, your words, your presence remind the staff, the patients, and the families that God is near. The physician friend, Sophia, told me about a pastor who was on the board at their hospital. And he regularly prayed for her hands and for her thinking. And he would stop her and he would give her words of affirmation and encouragement. He would tell her, I see you and I see the work you're doing, and you are doing a really good job. And she said, that got me through my toughest days, and it made me feel like God was with me. And that's what Elijah needed. He needed to know he wasn't alone, and that's what you're bringing to everybody else every other day. So I want you to go from here renewed, not only to care for others, but to allow God to care for you. To eat, to rest, be nourished, and listen for his whisper. And may he send you back into your calling with clarity, strength, and the assurance that you are never alone. If you don't mind, before we jump into the question and answer time, I would just like to pray over every single one of you before I send you out of here. So would you bow your heads and join me in prayer? Lord, you are the God who restores. You fed Elijah when he was empty. You whispered when the noise was too much. And you sent him back with strength for the journey. Today, I pray that these chaplains and these caregivers, the staff in this room, would know your sustaining care. Nourish their bodies, calm their minds, and steady their spirits. Remind them that self-care is not selfish, it's stewardship of your temple. And as they go out, let their presence be your gentle whisper in someone else's wilderness. May their words, their prayers, and their compassion remind weary hearts that you're near. Strengthen them, Lord, body, mind, and spirit, that they may strengthen others. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, one housekeeping thing before questions. Crichton University has a table out in the lobby. They are looking for feedback, and if you need your CEs, you can fill out the paperwork there or scan their QR code. Okay. All right. I can take some questions. Yes. Yes. Yeah, we've got studies today showing us that there is actually no connection between the cholesterol in an egg and your actual physical cholesterol levels. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's we put celery is like net zero too. It takes as much energy to eat it as it does contain nutrients, right? But nobody wants to live like that. We need calories in and calories out, but we also need nutrients in, right? It's not just that balance. I love eggs. Eggs yolks are full of choline. Choline makes your primary neurotransmitter acetylcholine. You need it for memory and for your brain to function and for you to be able to think. So as long as you don't have an egg sensitivity, there are other places in nature where choline exists. But as long as you can tolerate eggs, they're a great source of protein. And if you wanted to have one every day, I don't think it would be problematic. Now, if you have specific health concerns going on, obviously come and see me. We would talk about those. But as a broad general, right, nothing's prescriptive in here. This is just general advice. Yes. Oh, we got two hands over here. Right. So his question was, if somebody coming in on a vegan diet, is there still inherent risk, or can they do it well enough? My first answer is most of the people that come into my office on a vegan diet are not doing it correctly. I call it dirty vegan, dirty keto, right? Whatever you've picked, but it's still got a bunch of junk food in it that's no good for you. So with the vegan diet, I see a couple of things. We end up deficient in B12 because your body creates B12 when it digests meat inside the intestines. So if you are going to be on a vegan diet, you need to be supplementing with B12. If you are on a vegan diet, a lot of the vegan proteins are very low in serotonin, 5-HTP, tryptophan, very low in tryptophan. And so it's harder to have enough serotonin to have that piece. I end up with a lot of people with a lot of social anxiety and anxiety in my office who are on vegan diets. They're also tend to be low in omega-3 fats because they won't eat fish. So those omega-3 fats, they'll say, well, I can get them from my plant sources. Like walnuts, they've got omega-3s in them. Well, they don't. They have the precursor to omega-3s, and our bodies do not convert it very well. And after we've been through menopause and andropause, they convert it even more poorly. So I encourage them to, we can get algae omegas, and those algae omegas, they've got a plant-based omega, right? But it is incredibly low in the dosing. When we're doing therapeutic dosing of omega-3s, we're looking somewhere between 2 and 6 grams per day of omega-3s, and we've probably got about 120 to 100 and maybe 500 EPA, DHA levels inside those algae omegas. So they're looking at taking 10 pills at a time to get their levels up. So it's got some inherent risks. But a lot of that is like moral reasons why they come in, and so now we're dealing with a whole different. Like I could never eat something with a face or something that had a heart, life beat in it. You know, all of those things. I heard somebody say the other day, "Well, getting back to veganism is getting back to God's original plan, so therefore it must be best." And I was like, nah. You know, I it's hard to say that. And then the flip side of that too is living on a plant-based diet. Most plants are really high in oxalates, and so I see people with disrupted gut flora who are in agony living on a plant-based diet because it's creating all this oxalate buildup inside their joints. So my encouragement is Bishop Dolan, I keep calling him Nolan. Bishop Dolan asked me right before he left, he said, what is your one diet that you recommend for mental health? And I said, I don't. I have bio-individual diets for the people that I work with because no two people are the same. Okay. Gastroenterologist? Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I struggled with so gut. My gut has been my weak spot ever since I had E. coli infection, right? And so I've gone through various stages of different things. And one of the things that I ended up trying was a low FODMAP diet, and I found it incredibly helpful. So for those that don't know, FODMAPs are it's a initials that stand for fructooligosaccharides, oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. And those are basically sugars that are found inside your fruits and vegetables. They're found in wheats and grains and those types of things. So they're mostly plant-based. This is where we find them. And what happens is when the digestive tract is not functioning properly, It can start, especially in the small intestine, those things can sit and they start fermenting. Now, we know about oligosaccharides because we know about beans, right? Beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot, right? We talk a lot about tooting and pooping in my office too, because what goes in comes out, right? So when the gut's not functioning properly, everything's sitting inside the small intestine, it's fermenting, and we can see people dealing with constipation and diarrhea very easily. And so FODMAPs, these groups of foods can have certain types of those sugars in them. Watermelon, to me, was one of my worst because it's got sugars in 3 of those categories, and it was diabolical. A little bit of watermelon, I'd be in the bathroom for 3 days, right? Cashews, and they build up, they stack on one another. So if you have a little bit of avocado with some cashews and some chickpeas today, nightmare. Soy was a nightmare. Like, it would just totally wreck my gut. But the issue is not the FODMAP foods. The issue is the health of the intestines. So we need to also work with the practitioner to get that under control, figure out what the underlying overgrowth of bacteria or maybe even parasites are, bring that back into control, and then you'll be able to reintroduce that. This summer, I was able to put watermelon back in. It was glorious. Now, I'm not going crazy with it, but I've been able to eat it again. It's very helpful. It's short term because it's taking out lots of very healthy foods otherwise. Okay. Did you have a second question? Okay. Yep. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Right. So my first comment when I said this was you cannot out supplement a bad diet. So his question is, should we really be doing supplementation and is it needed? What I would tell you is, first off, our physicians get about 2 weeks of nutrition education when they are in school. Okay. So that's why you're relying on nutritionists to bring that information. We've been in school studying these things for a lot longer. One of the things we did in my classes, we sat down, we said, adrenal health, let's make an adrenal recipe. And we had to sit down and we had to list every single nutrient that was in there, the amount of that nutrient that was in there, and then total it up at the end. And is this enough therapeutically to help treat somebody who's in adrenal fatigue? And the answer was no. There was never enough B vitamins inside of a recipe to be able to bring. And when you do things like cook your food, you deplete those water soluble nutrients. So I'm not a huge proponent for a raw diet either. I think we need both. We need raw and cooked foods, and it depends on the state of your gut as well. As we have like industrialized our food growth processes, the carrots that our great grandmother ate are not the same carrots that we eat today. They do not have the same nutritional benefit in them because the ground is nutritionally deficient. Carrots get their minerals and vitamins, they suck it up from the ground. And so if the soil is overworked and hasn't been given its Sabbath rest, it's like God had a plan when he said we needed to do that, right? When we've overworked the soil, the plants are low in those nutrients. So whenever somebody comes into my office, I really try hard not to go nuts on the supplements. I've seen other practitioners do it. It gets really overwhelming. There are too many to take. But I do start you off with a good basic multi. I assume everybody coming in is nutritionally deficient until we know otherwise. I usually have most people on some kind of omega, but also bear in mind that I am working with mental health folks too, right? And I usually have somebody on some kind of probiotic. That's my starting point. And then we build from there. I learned probably within the last 2 years to quit doing amino acid therapy until I've had them under my care for a month doing dietary changes, because then that tells me where they are nutritionally deficient for their brains. But if we over supplement in the beginning and then they start changing their diet and things start improving, I don't know what's working and what's not working. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else got? Yes, you had a question. Yes. Big topic. I have a whole class on that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, great question because this is it rolling out in real life, right? So I have food allergies. I have kids with different food allergies from my food allergies. We have family. My son-in-law is a type 1 diabetic. So we're dealing with all kinds of things when we have family get-togethers. So this is what I do. I reach out to the family before we get together. And I say, I have a couple of philosophies. The first one sounds terrible, but I care as much as you do. So if you are going to show up and just eat cake anyway, then we're going to make sure there's dessert for everybody because I can't force my ideology and my philosophies on you. And if we're having a big birthday party and you want cake, we're going to make sure there's a gluten-free, dairy-free option for those that want it. And we're going to ask, and I often will, I'll say, listen, if you guys want dessert, can you bring it? Right? I will check in with them. Hey, tell me what you can eat at the moment. Let's have a conversation about that. I'd love to be able to help provide for you. So if you have a specific type of bread that you want, then can you either bring that, potluck it with me, or let me know what type it is that you want. And then when you come to our house, we do everything by ingredients. We will often do taco bars because they're so easy that you can just start at the beginning and have everything in a dish and people can build their own and they can put in what they need. My sister-in-law has Crohn's, so we can't do lots of red meat with her, but we will do it's like going to a buffet. We'll have like red meat taco meat, we'll have turkey taco meat, and then we'll have cheese for those that can eat it. We'll have non-dairy cheese for those who can't. We will have lettuce and tomatoes and right salsas, and then people corn tortillas for those that want it, wheat tortillas for those that want it. And we will just so you can build your own when you come to your house and feel like you're comfortable. And then as a person, I have learned not to impose that on other people. So like today, I bought my own lunch. I don't know what's going to be there. I learned a long time ago to just start packing and taking my things with me so that I'm not an imposition on families and I don't expect them to cater for me and for all of my needs. Does that help a little bit? Yeah. It is a deep subject. Yeah. And it's just about conversation and communication and then doing what you can. I used to cater all, and when I say I care as much as you care, I used to cater all organic meals because it matters to me. But when you've got 20 people coming over for an all organic meal, we would drop in $150 just to cater the family, whatever we were doing. And they don't care and they don't eat that way at home. So I stopped catering that way for everybody at the meal. And we would pick up, conventional meat or whatever to keep the budget reasonable. So yeah. Yeah. You can make room for me. Yeah. I love working with people and coming alongside them to help them figure out how to do this. This is what I get to do. So it's a joy to be able to do that. And it's a real joy today to be able to blend those two worlds, faith and food. So I'm grateful for that opportunity.